We are online.
Don't forget to proceed with the recording.
Hello everyone again. Before starting with dear Iman, don't forget to finalize your evidence paragraph until to the next day. If you couldn't complete this paragraph, we can't continue tomorrow. Please make sure to finalize this paragraph. And we are online again. Dear Iman, the mic is yours.
Welcome back. I wish that you enjoyed with the discussion. And now please enjoy the Dream Circle Sudan show. Dream Circle Sudan aims to spread demanding culture through community dream circles, reflecting different aspects and presenting the Sudanian culture.
It's coming. Just give me 1 second. Okay, are we ready, everyone? Okay, there we go.
Design post,
Back to Iman.
I hope everyone enjoyed the great music. Please allow me now to introduce Mrs. Sireen Fayoumi. She is the engagement specialist at Akhlaquna Award, which is launched by Qatar Foundation under Her Highness Sheikh Moza bint Nasser.
Thank you so much, Iman. Thank you everybody for having me and thank you for joining us. Today I'm going to be speaking about a very important initiative. First of all, I wanted to check the sound quality, if you can hear me properly. Okay, perfect. So we're going to start by talking about the Akhlaquna Award, introducing it, and talking about how you can also get involved. I'll wait on Dr. Evren to start sharing the presentation. Thank you, Dr. Evren. So the Akhlaquna Award. I'll begin by giving you a brief. If we can go to the next page, Dr. Evren. So what is Akhlaquna? Akhlaquna is an award launched by Her Highness Sheikh Moza. As you know, Sheikh Moza wants to really influence the youth in particular to carry out either daily life activities or to carry out actions and initiatives that impact their society at large, specifically in Qatar. So Akhlaqna is an initiative that was launched in 2017. It's aimed at driving the youth between the ages of 15 to 24 to create either grassroots movements, initiatives, projects that embody one of our four values that you can see on the right side of the screen, which are tolerance, honesty, mercy, and generosity. So these are just the values that make up the foundation of Akhlaquna, but that doesn't mean that any initiative that applies to the award needs to only have one of these values. You can have any value that betters our community. So you can find out more on the website about social media to know more about the award, but other than that, I'll be telling you more about how you can participate, what you need to do to participate. Next, please. All right, so we said Akhlaquna is an award that aims at encouraging you in creating projects, creating grassroots movement initiatives, whether they're research projects in your school, whether you're doing volunteer work, whether you're doing any sort of initiative in Qatar, you can apply to the Akhlaqna Award. You need to be between the ages of 15 to 24 if you're working by yourself. However, if you're working in a group, at least 50% of the group needs to be between the age range, and the other 50% can be outside the age range. So you can work with your parents, you can work with your older siblings, with your teachers to create a project within your school or outside and apply for the award. This is open to all nationalities residing in Qatar. Your project should have some moral value within it that betters the community. Projects have to be fully developed and operational. As I said, individuals and groups are eligible for the award, and even projects with small audiences, even if you think it's not impactful, you can apply to the Akhlaqna Award. Examples of multiple projects that I can give you are beach cleanup projects. Some people conduct research projects. Some people conduct some kind of like Ramadan iftar, for example, targeted at a certain audience in Qatar, and these can all act as projects. Next, please. One of the winning projects for Cycle 2 was called Mubsurun. The winners were awarded by Her Highness Sheikh Moza, and their project was basically creating an application for the visually impaired, for them to be able to look at restaurant menus and knowing the prices, the nutritional facts about the meals in the restaurant. And this was very important to the visually impaired for them to feel like they're independent. When they go into a restaurant, they can depend on themselves to choose a meal without the help of others. It was a wonderful initiative, and we're gonna walk you through their journey in seeing how they've come up with this idea and then showing you the aftermath after they won the Akhlaqna Award. Please, I hope you enjoy the coming video of showing Mubsurun's journey.
في قطر عندنا 3000 مكفوف، فكرنا إحنا شلون نخلي المكفوفين نفسنا، هذا حق إحنا نعطيهم حقهم. استغلينا التكنولوجيا لمساعدة المكفوفين. في المنيو حق الابليكيشن ملخص بسيط حق كل وجبة. مبصرون بدايته كان ابليكيشن، لكن صارت أهدافنا المستقبلية أن ندمج المكفوفين مع المجتمع، لأن المكفوفين جزء منه، كلنا بشر. أنا نوال علي الكربي، قائدة مبادرة مبصرون. هذا حلمنا وهذه قصتي وهذه قصة مبصرون.
And now we'll be showcasing the video after they won the Akhlaqna Award and the support that they received from the award. Hope you enjoy the video as well. So as you saw, the Mubsirun group created a project. They thought of a problem that society faced and they created a project, applied to the award, they won, and we supported them in getting their message across on different platforms and really supporting their journey and supporting your journey, and we hope that you also become a part of the Akhlaquna family. Now I'd love to also talk about Yes I Can, another winning group in cycle 3, the last cycle, who were also awarded by Her Highness Sheikh Hamza bin Nasser in winning Akhlaqna Cycle 3. Yes, I Can are actually a group of Qatar University students. They all have varying physical disabilities, and even though they have these disabilities, the team's objective was to fight these misconceptions regarding their abilities and to showcase the importance of their role in society. So what they've done was they created multiple initiatives. They did on their own. They did iftar initiative in Ramadan. They planted trees in their university. They made a day especially for QU workers in which they gave them food and water and sat with them. These were initiatives completely led by them because they wanted to showcase their abilities. They wanted to stress that they are an important part of society, which they definitely are. And for their great efforts, they won the Akhlaqullah Award Cycle 3. Please join me in watching another video of theirs, showcasing their journey and then also showcasing the support they have received.
هل إذا أنت تمشي في الشارع وضعت وبتشوف اثنين يمشون مع بعض، واحد يمشي عادي سليم وواحد على كرسي، هل بتسأل اللي على كرسي عن الطريق أو بتسأل الشخص السليم عن الطريق؟
ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة قادرين على العطاء والابتكار، فمثلهم مثل أي شخص عادي يعني.
ما أحب إن واحد يشوفني يشفق علي أو إنه يقول إن هاي مسكين.
هدف مبادرة أنا أقدر هي تغيير الصورة النمطية السائدة لذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة في المجتمع.
هدفنا إن إحنا نظهر دورنا في المجتمع عن طريق الحملات اللي نسويها. من خلال الحملات نوصل للفرد في المجتمع، يشوف إن إحنا مثلي مثلك.
فئة ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة قادرين على الابتكار والعطاء، بس إنهم ما يحتاجون الفرصة.
And now we move on to their journey and watching their journey and support after they won the Cycle 3 Akhlaqna Award.
شوف احنا وصولنا لهاي المرحلة من جائزة أخلاقنا يعتبر ان احنا قادرين على العطاء والإنجاز وقادرين على العزيمة والإصرار، سواء فزنا أو ما فزنا هاي المرحلة بتكون شرف لنا يعني.
انا طموحي مثل ما قلت ان انا مثلا اشوف واحد مثلا مقعد على كرسي يكون جنبه واحد ثاني عادي يكونون شغالين مع بعض، شيء طبيعي يعني. تجي تدش وزاره يستقبلك واحد، حتى في الاستقبال يستقبلك واحد على كرسي يكون موظف استقبال، ما فيها شيء.
والله بصراحة عن أول شيء مكتب الدمج بصراحة يعني هم يعني سبورت قوي لنا بصراحة.
برأيك إيش الشعور إنه أنتوا أخذتوا جائزة زي كجائزة أخلاق هنا أكدت على أهمية الجهود اللي أنتوا عملتوها؟
والله الصراحة كان شعور لا يوصف يعني. من أول ما قالوا لنا إحنا تأهلنا يعني تعرف الشعور اللي نفس التوتر اللي بتحسي مثل ألم بالمعدة، يعني كان شيء يعني شيء جدا حماسي، شيء كان بيخلينا نشتغل أكثر لين ما وصلنا قالوا إحنا فزنا بالجائزة. يعني أنا إلى الآن ما عندي كلام الصراحة إني أنا أقدر أوصف شعورنا فيه.
So as we watched, even through COVID-19, and since this is post-COVID-19 humanity, that didn't stop all the groups, all the humanitarian groups in Qatar from doing good. It's only a stop for a short while, but inshallah we will continue regardless of the pandemic, and we will continue to give as initiatives. And as Akhlaqna, we hope to support you, and we hope that you come to us for support in your initiatives, in the projects that you're wanting to do. So to learn more about the Akhlaqna Award, please do visit the akhlaqna.qa website or follow us on our social media. You can see our handles. As some of you know, the deadline is April 9th, the last day to submit your initiatives, any projects that you've been working on. There's not a very strict guideline of what the projects need to be. You just need to work on something that helps society and the humanity. Please do reach out to us for more information. And thank you so much for staying with us and for listening about the Akhlaqna Award.
Thank you, Mrs. Serene. Now going forward with Mr. Umran Saeed. He is part of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation faculty at the MIT Salon School for Management, where he teaches the MPA program. He was also the founding global president of OPEN, an entrepreneurship and leadership organization.
Great. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. And thank you, Dr. Evren, distinguished guests, and especially the youth on this call for having me here. I've had the opportunity to come out to HBKU a few years ago in person and given a talk, and mashallah, huge fan of what you're all doing and the overall Qatar Foundation. So looking, excited about about this whole program. My talk today is on empowering youth, since that's the focus of this whole program, through innovation and specifically we're looking at the areas of literacy and numeracy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the problem, why it's such a huge issue and needs to be solved to really empower youth. How we used digital technology and innovation to come up with some interesting solutions, and then also most importantly, how the concepts, the virtues of ta'aruf, ta'awun, and tarahum have been so critical to the success so far. And then what the takeaways are for the youth. But before we jump into that, I want to give a little bit of a background on, why we started this and why it was important. So as you all know, I'm part of the entrepreneurship and innovation faculty at the Sloan School of Management, the business school at MIT. I teach 3 areas. So I teach corporate innovation. I teach another topic is disruptive technologies and new business models. And then the third area I teach is the future of learning. And as you all know, especially over this last year during COVID, learning has dramatically changed, right? With everything from online learning, MOOCs, massively open online courses, gamification, asynchronous versus synchronous learning, everything from personalized, adaptive, etc., things like that. So we've been teaching it, and since my background is I'm not a pure academic, I've also been a serial entrepreneur, started several companies. I didn't want to just teach this topic. I actually wanted to take some of those ideas and put them into a solution and see if it would actually work. So that's how we started this project a few years ago, and I'll give you some of the results in terms of empowering youth. So that's the focus today. So inshallah, let's get started. Hold on. So let's first look at the problem, right? The challenge in education. There's 260 million out-of-school children in the world today and growing, right? So you can't empower youth if they don't even have a basic education. In addition, there's 80 million refugees and displaced people, out of which 52% are children with, again, very limited or almost no access to education. On top of that, here's a statistic that just blew my mind. I was at the World Economic Forum this year, and the executive director of UNICEF said that 50% of the world's 10-year-olds cannot read a simple paragraph and understand it, right? That's a huge problem in terms of education. If 50% of 10-year-olds cannot read a simple paragraph and understand it. And then on top of that, you have the last problem of accountability. There's schools built in many parts of the world, but they're ghost schools, right? Teachers don't show up, students don't show up, and whatnot. So that's the problem, right? It's a worldwide problem. If you add these numbers up, I mean, we're talking billions. And how do you empower kids who don't have the basic ability to read, write, and do math? And that's a problem we're solving. Now, traditional approaches to solving this problem haven't worked, right? Even if the funding existed, it would take too long and it would cost too much, right? There is a current gap in the world of 6.8 million teachers. So if you wanted to address just basic, primary and secondary education, we have a gap of 6.8 million teachers. Imagine how long it takes to train those, right? If you're also going to build schools, that's another problem, right? So just as an example, just in the country of Pakistan, it would take, building 12 schools every day for 20 years just to be able to keep up with the current gap for out-of-school children. And then you still have the problems of quality and accountability. So clearly, a traditional model does not work. And this is where innovation, comes in, right? So this is where we, given our background at MIT, we said, okay, you know what? Digital learning can offer a solution, both for the teacher shortage as well as the school costs, by really focusing on self-learning, and that can be deployed quickly. So the model that we came up with is right here. It's basically the concept of a digital microschool, right? And what the digital microschool is basically you have a small classroom that can be, put together in a couple of weeks, prefab with a little washroom, and that's set up in refugee camps and slum areas of countries. And I'll tell you where we've deployed this so far. And basically, what we do is we bring together the out-of-school children. We give them an Android tablet, a low-cost Android tablet, with headphones for each of the kids. We have a solar panel so that there's no problem with power. We have an internet hotspot, and basically then these kids play games. So they have games for English, math. They play the Rohingya languages, the Malawi languages, Urdu in Pakistan, etc. And they play for 2 hours a day. And because it's only 2 hours, we can have 3 to 5 shifts, and we can have 125 students in this one little classroom because they were divided up. And the age groups are anywhere from 5 to 19 years old. And there's no teachers, right? These kids are just playing the games. There's a facilitator in the room just to make sure, if they're young kids, that they're maintaining order in the class. And that's it. That's the concept. And I'll give you another example of what this looks like inside. This is what the inside of one of these prefab rooms looks like. So as you can see, the kids are sitting there. They've got their masks on, at least most of them do. They've got their headphones on, and they're on their tablets. And there's a facilitator at the head of the room, just making sure that they're keeping order. And that's it. The facilitator is somebody from the community who basically we can train in about 2 weeks just to do basic stuff like how do you reboot a tablet if something happens, or how do you reboot the hotspot, things like that, right? So it's somebody from the community. They can get a source of income as well, and that's what it looks like. So what progress have we had so far? We've deployed this in multiple locations. In orphanages with about 2,000 kids, orphanages in Malawi, slum areas of major cities like Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, in Pakistan, in Dhaka, in the remote parts of the Himalayan mountains where there's no access to power, internet, any of those. That's where the solar panels come in handy. And in the Rohingya refugee camps on the border with Myanmar. So we've tried it in multiple locations, right? And different types of geographies and whatnot. And in every case, what we found is that when we evaluate the progress of our kids compared to third-party, traditional kids in a traditional classroom, they perform on average, 100% better. So we're talking 100 to 150%, 2 times better on English and math. Consistently. So we're not even talking 10, 20% improvement. And this is with just 2 hours a day. The other thing that we found that's really interesting is that they get other critical benefits that are important for the 21st century, right? They get digital literacy at a very early age. They learn the concept of intellectual curiosity and self-learning. Which is so important to to inculcate in our youth, because once they understand the joy of learning, then you can set them free in this world, right? There's no limit on what they can do. And they get increased motivation and confidence as they learn to read and write and do basic math and things like that. The other thing that we found is that there is excellent accountability, because all of these games have amazing analytics. You can see how students are doing, where they're going, whatnot. We had a problem in Malawi where one of the orphanages that we were working with, unfortunately, we had a corrupt person, so he was keeping the tablets himself, and through the game analytics, we found that the kids weren't playing. So we could very quickly tell that he wasn't accomplishing what he would set out to do, and we corrected the problem. So that's where the accountability is so important. So that's the result so far. Inshallah, the results should be even better in the future as there's ongoing advances in technology. We're actually trying this out on smartphones right now, which allows us this to dramatically scale even further. We're trying things like augmented reality, more game designs, things like that. So just to get a quick, example of how we're taking, innovation and putting it to practice, for a very specific problem. So I want to step back and talk a little bit about how this aligns with, the virtues of Ta'aruf, Ta'awun, and Tarahum, right? So as we talk about Ta'aruf, which is, acquaintance, tolerance, respect, that's a huge part of this, right? the first thing we had to do is we had to, these people, these out of school children, these refugees are people that are on the fringes of society, right? They're forgotten in many cases. People don't even know about them. So really this concept of us, reaching out to them, understanding, getting to know them, respecting what they have, recognizing their potential, and then, understanding their problems using human-centric design was the first part of, really helping design a solution. Without that, we wouldn't have really gotten to know their issues and designed a solution that works for them, right? So that's where that came in. The concept of ta'awun, or cooperation, was again central, right? This program would not be possible without the cooperation of the community elders, right? Who put their trust in us. I mean, we were these MIT, professors and whatnot coming in from outside. And they're like, who are you? Why are you here? Do you have some other agenda? But, they cooperated with us. And that was critical for us to do this work. Similarly, the local governments, right, recognized the value of this and allowed us to work. They basically stayed away. That's all you want from local governments. They did not, get in our way, which would have been a huge problem. There was a lot of cooperation involved across the innovation ecosystem, researchers at MIT who helped, come up with these solutions, researchers at XPRIZE, which also is a global innovation competition, and we are actually using some of their games, and the local universities in the countries that we're in that actually help adapt the games to local languages and customs as well. And most importantly, the cooperation of parents, right? I mean, these are parents who are looking at something that's so foreign to them, right? I mean, they've never seen, in many cases, they've never seen a tablet, and for them to let us work with their children, and in many cases, sort of they wholeheartedly embraced it, has been incredible, right? With that cooperation. We've had many parents come to us and say, my son or my daughter is so excited about coming to your school, to your micro school, much more so than, other kids who are going to a traditional school. Can't you take more kids? And it's like, well, we have a limit right now. So that cooperation and ta'awun have been incredibly powerful. And then lastly, tarahum, right? Mercy, and that's manifested itself in many different ways. Volunteers stepping up to work with us, in every different aspect, from research to being on the ground to being facilitators, whatnot. The game vendors, right? We didn't develop these games ourselves. There are some amazing digital games out there in the market that have been used in traditional classrooms and in other places. And when we went to talk to the game vendors and still told them what we were doing, they gave us a 90% discount on licenses. So that's another example of mercy and tarahum. And then and lastly, the donations and the funding that we've gotten both from corporations and individuals in those countries and all over the world to actually help us, fund this program going forward has been great. So just an example of how those three concepts really came together to make this initiative possible. So key takeaway for for the youth on this talk, on this call, is that innovation and human-centered design are very strong tools that will guide you in creating promising and relevant solutions, for the post-COVID humanity, right? Always look for, interesting ideas, think sort of, creatively. Mashallah, during this whole program, you've been given a lot of tools that can help you really expand your horizons and think of innovative techniques. So please use that. But always remember that while those will help you in creating those promising solutions, the concepts of ta'aruf, ta'awun, and tarahum is what's ultimately going to make them sustainable and successful going forward, because those are key values that you will bring with you that will, enable people to, understand each other, to work well together, and to, show the mercy that's so needed to solve some of these problems and empower our youth going forward. All right. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if we have any questions.
I see the one question from our participants. Dear Hamza, if you wish, you can ask directly to dear Imran Said. Or I can read this question. He said, what about health issues by handling over tablets from such a young age to kids, like eyesight issues, back problems, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great question. So that's why we limit the digital learning to 2 hours a day. What we found is that 2 hours is, enough to teach them this numeracy and literacy with incredible results, but doesn't tire them out, doesn't strain them or whatnot, right? The problem we see these days in the developed world is that kids are spending way too much time, right? I mean, they're spending like 12 hours a day sometimes on their phones and their tablets. So we limit that. So it's 2 hours a day. But that's a very good question. I see some other hands raised.
Yes, Sarah, here we go, if you wish. And let me give an permission.
Wonderful, thank you. It's a great initiative and very innovative for sure. My question is in regards to the subjects that would be, what kind of subjects does that offer? Is it just restricted to the language, a local language, and like mathematical skills? And also, how does that apply to older or like teenage years? So for example, middle school and high school, as opposed to like younger children.
Absolutely. So right now we're teaching 3 subjects. We're teaching English, reading and writing, because we feel like English is a universal subject that, unlocks access to the internet and, commerce around the world. So we're teaching that. We're teaching math, reading and writing. Basic everything from addition, subtraction, all the way to grade 5. And then we're teaching the local language, like I said, whether it's in Malawi or Rakhine in Myanmar and things like that. Right now, those are only 3 subjects because, again, the goal is to provide basic literacy and numeracy and then help unlock the potential of these kids. Inshallah, our plan is to maybe expand down the road, but we also wanted to limit it to that 2 hours, right? And that was a sort of a conscious trade-off. And then your other question was about age group. So ideal age group for us is anywhere from like 4.5 to 7, 8.5, because we're starting out at grade 1 curriculum, kindergarten curriculum and going all the way to grade 5. However, what we find is in these environments, whether it's refugee camps or slum areas, etc. I mean, you've got kids, all the way to 19 years old adults who have no education, and they actually work with their younger sisters or brothers, or in some cases their kids, and they're doing the program as well. And we don't stop that. We love to have them as well in the program. So the nice thing is, because it's very individualized, right? It's you working with the game yourself, and it's adapting to your approach. It's not like they're going at the same pace as a 5-year-old. They can go at a lot faster pace if they want to. That's the beauty of the program. Yes,
thank you so much, dear Sarah. Dear Mujib, if you wish, we can continue with you.
He's
yes, sir, I had a question that is, does your school totally works on funds, or like, for example, if you're teaching a child and later he becomes stable, he can pay salary and stuff, or is it totally dependent on funds, your school?
Great question, mashallah, Mujib. So right now, because it's a new program, it's only a few years old, it's dependent on funds. But the idea that we are going to do is, right now we are experimenting with making this into more of a Grameen type program, where these micro schools are going to be run by what we call micro entrepreneurs. So these women in these communities, and what we're going to do is we're going to give them the investment with the tablets and the games and whatnot, and then they can charge a fee, a small fee to kids in their community, and that provides a way for them to sustain their livelihood, and it makes their program sort of self-sustaining. And then that's the goal going forward. But right now, because it's still new, we are funding it ourselves. But mashallah, excellent question.
Thank you so much, dear Mujib. Dear Al Muhanadi, if you wish, the mic is yours.
I would like to thank you first, Imran, on this initiative. To be honest, I've been working as well with humanitarian projects that support educational and e-learning methods to support refugee camps in Jordan and etc., and supporting the Syrian refugees, etc. So the same model that you've been talking about e-learning and providing basic education is necessary for refugees in general. What's the expansion model that you do have? So in terms of funding the project itself, the running and establishment cost of such project, and what kind of necessary access tools that you do provide if you want to establish it in any location that it's, especially in the Arab world, where is in Turkey, in Jordan, and the main refugee camps that it's around. In the Arab world, and as well, what do you require in terms of funding such and then making it sustainable in the long run, where you have different stages of development?
Right. So as you can imagine, we've been inundated with requests from around the world. We had the former president of Mexico fly us in and try to convince us to launch the program over there. We've had, people in the Arab world. We've had people in India. What we're doing is right now, we are developing a lighter weight version of this program that's just on smartphones. And what we'll probably do is we're still testing it. We go through a fairly rigorous process of control testing to see how the efficacy of these programs, right? Once we've done that, we're going to roll out the smartphone program to people who want to quote unquote franchise it, right? Whether it's in the Arab world or other refugee camps and things like that, because there you don't even need a tablet, right? It's a much more lighter weight program. And that's probably what we're going to use for expanding this beyond the micro schools that we're doing. The micro school program itself will be not as widely done because it does require a little bit more effort. So we're going to be a little bit more systematic about it, but the smartphone program will be much more shared. So once that's available, inshallah, we'll be publishing stuff on our website and making that available. Next question.
The last question coming from Miss Abu Hawash. The mic is yours.
I wanted to ask you, Doctor, as youth, how can we help you? For example, I have been teaching English language during summer vacation in the last 2 years for refugees, but how can we as youth help you in this initiative? And also I have another question. How do you help in fighting bullying in those schools if you face them? Thank you.
Great. Let me just talk about the bullying one, and then I'll get to your other question, because that's a great last question to have. We have that facilitator from the community in the room, and that's precisely for that reason, so that these kids are they have somebody who's an adult who has the respect and whatnot, and they're sort of they understand the community, they understand those issues. And by and large, what we found is, mashallah, these kids are so motivated to learn that we haven't had those issues. You also have to remember that it's a very small self-selecting subset of the population, right? I mean, for every kid that we take into our program, there are 10 kids standing outside wanting to enter. So when they do enter, they're very, very focused and motivated to learn. And so we haven't had as much of that issue, but that's why we have the facilitator. And I'm so glad you asked the question about how the youth can help. This initiative is meant for youth, and it is going to be driven by youth. So, as we expand our smartphone program, we will need people like yourself to be people, assessors, right? Mentors, folks who can remotely assess the progress of some of these kids, again, on their phone or tablet. We'll need youth who, if this is being done in their own country, would be willing to be facilitators, for example, or what we call supervisors of facilitators, right? Giving them basic training. So we've already, harnessed the youth in the communities and countries that we're working with. And inshallah, we hope to make it even more digital as we launch the smartphone program. And that's where we'd love to get all of you involved.
Thank you, Mr. Saeed. Now we will welcome Mr. Ivan Willies. He is the founder of Thirst Project, a vibrant international initiative supporting SDG number 6, which is aimed for clean water. The mic is yours, Dr. Ivan.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Imran, thanks for such an informative and insightful presentation. Education is such a powerful force for good. And, we need young people to be immersed in those experiences so we can truly see change in the world. So my name is Evan, and good morning from Los Angeles, California. Good afternoon / good evening from your part of the world. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and close out this session. And I'm here representing an organization called Thirst Project. So if it is okay with you all, I'm going to share my screen and just take you through a couple pictures or stories so you can understand a little bit more about our work and our world. So Thirst Project's an organization we actually started 12 years ago. And we were started by students, young people just like you. It was a group of young people that came together. They heard about an issue called the global water crisis, and they decided to do something about it. So at the time, there was over 1 billion people who lacked access to safe, clean drinking water. There's about 1 in 7 people on our planet. And so this group of young people living in Los Angeles decided to go and do what they knew best, which was talk. They talked to people on the streets of Hollywood, and they asked individuals if they knew about the water crisis. They asked teachers if their students were educated on this issue. And we came to realize that it was not the case, that people in the United States specifically were not talking about the water crisis, and young people were not informed of this issue. And so we were invited to talk to a couple local schools in Southern California so we could educate students about this issue. So we gave 2 free presentations to 2 high schools here in Los Angeles. Students heard about the water crisis, and they decided to step up and do something about it. So these groups raised thousands of dollars so we could build deep borehole wells in developing communities. And through that process, the Thirst Project was born. And we realized something on that day 12 years ago. You see, we realized that if we wanted to change the world, and when I say we, I mean the global community. Like if we, the people on this call right now, if we want to change the world in any capacity, if we want to provide quality education for all people, if we want to end poverty as we know it, if we want to give everyone in the world access to clean water, it starts with you. It starts with young people. It starts with students acknowledging their role to take action around causes that we care about. And so that's what Thirst Project is based on. This message of young people are powerful agents of social change, and the world is in desperate need of change. And when I talk about Thirst Project, there are really 2 things you need to know. The first is the global water crisis. It's the fact that there are hundreds of millions of people today who do not have access to clean water, and we're here to do something about it. And part of my message across the world when I get in front of students is connecting the water crisis to the issues that you care about. It's connecting the water crisis to gender equality. It's connecting the water crisis to health and sanitation, food security, economic opportunity. The list goes on. I'm biased without question, but I do believe that the water crisis is one of the most pressing humanitarian issues that we face today. And I think this past year in COVID has only highlighted the issue of water scarcity globally. But the side of our work at Thirst Project that's not connected to the water crisis is directly connected to you. It's to students. It's to young people around the world who are willing to accept our message, but also accept their role across the landscape of social impact to take action around the causes that we hopefully all care about. And so my job at Thirst Project has been working with students around the world, talking about the global water crisis, letting them know not just the facts of this issue, not just the fact that over 600 million people lack access to safe, clean drinking water, or the fact that around 1,000 kids die every single day from completely preventable waterborne diseases, or the fact that, there are entire countries in certain parts of the world that 76 to 100% of populations that lack access to the 5 gallons per person per day that we need to survive of water, while the average American uses over 100 gallons of water a day. There's so many statistics that support the reality that the water crisis is an issue, that people's lives are affected by what's happening when you don't have access to close, safe water. But I'm here to not just share some facts, I want to share some stories. And what I think it is interesting is as I come in here and we think critically about design post-COVID humanity, in order to think about post-COVID humanity, I think we also must think about what we've learned inside of COVID and what humanity has looked like for the last year. So what have we as people learned in the last 12 months? What have we allowed ourselves to take a step back and look at so we can become better versions of ourselves once we come out of this pandemic? So I want to talk about 3 things that I have really challenged myself to lean into, and I've challenged our students to lean into as we look at this past year. And I want to share 3 little anecdotes with you, and I want to attach these anecdotes with stories of people that I've worked with, stories of individuals who have touched not just my life, but the lives of others. And in these stories, my hope is that I will reveal the importance of clean water to you. I will also reveal the significance of your role that you can play in ending issues like the global water crisis. And so bear with me as I share these stories, and I'll pop up some pictures. But the first story is of a really good friend of mine. I consider him a brother. He's in this picture right here, if you can see. His name is Sibusiso Shiba. And Sibusiso Shiba lives in a really small country called Eswatini, formerly known as the Kingdom of Swaziland. And Sibusiso Shiba, growing up in Eswatini, had a desire for development. He had a desire to give back. And so we met Sibu back in 2012 as an organization who wanted to help provide clean water to people in need in Eswatini. And at the time, Sibu was working for the Ministry of Natural Resources in the Department of Rural Water Affairs. So Sibu's job was to help work with rural communities, identifying their need for water and helping implement water projects on the ground. We found Sibu, we fell in love with his personality, his character, his expertise, and we said, man, we need this guy on our team. We want Sibu to help us build out our operations in Eswatini so we can give as many people clean water as possible. And so that's exactly what we did. The first day we met Sibu, he drove us around the country. He took us to rural communities. He talked to us about the need for clean water. He showed us communities where kids had schistosomiasis, a waterborne disease that causes you to urinate blood. He took us to communities where people were walking multiple kilometers a day just to collect water. He took us to some of the driest regions of Eswatini where they hadn't had rain in months. And so all of their food had completely dried out that they were trying to grow. And as we ran around with Sibu, at the end of the day, we made a commitment that we wanted him to be a part of our team. And in that commitment, we said, hey, we want you to be our guy who will connect with communities on the ground to provide clean water for people in need. And the first little anecdote I want to share with you inside of COVID and what I've thought about for the last few months and why it relates to Sibu is, how can I daily become a better person? What is a decision I can make daily when I wake up to become a better human being? And I've thought about this word selflessness. How can I be selfless from the time that I wake up to the time that I go to sleep every single day? And it's interesting that our mind, when we allow it to occupy thoughts of selflessness, then we remove thoughts of selfishness. And so I would encourage you to think about every single morning when you wake up, if we want a better world, then how can we just allow our mind to trend to a place of selflessness? Others more, myself less. And the reason I bring up Sibu is because in my mind, he is the picture of selflessness. And here's why. We hired Sibu to help us build water projects on the ground in Eswatini. And that was back in 2012. In 2014, Sibu had been working with us for years. He'd been helping us build water projects in communities around the nation of Eswatini. And then one day, our team was over in the field in Eswatini with Sibu. And he told us that he had to leave one of our trips early. And we asked him, we said, Sibu, what's wrong? What's happening? Why do you have to leave? And he said that his daughter was sick. And we asked him, well, your daughter's sick. Is it pretty serious? And he said, yeah. He talked to us about what she was sick with, and she actually had a waterborne disease. And so Sibu was telling us that his daughter was sick from a waterborne disease because his community did not have access to clean water. Yet, Sibu had spent the last 2 years helping us build water projects around the country for communities in need. Sibu had consciously made the decision not to help his community, but to first try and provide clean water access to communities around the country. He was our point person for water projects on the ground, and yet he had made this decision to help others first before he helped himself. And I daily am reminded of Sibu's selfless mindset. And so I want to encourage you inside of and outside of COVID to, again, think about how can we wake up every single morning and choose to be selfless while putting others first and inevitably thinking about others more. But this daily decision of selflessness, I think also can be coupled with another decision we can make. Daily, we can get in a mindset of putting others before ourselves. But I think there are also interesting decisions that we've had to make in this past season of life. I look at a season of life as 6 months or more. And COVID was a specific season of life for me. And I want you to think about, if daily you're choosing to be selfless in this past season, what have you had to sacrifice? What have you had to give up? When we look at sacrifice or giving something up, I think of resources. And the two resources that I think about immediately are time and money. So if I asked you to sacrifice something for the betterment of humanity, what would you need to sacrifice? Maybe for some of you, it's waking up early. Maybe for some of you, it's going to sleep later because you're giving time to a cause or an issue that you care about. But I want to share this story of sacrifice about my friend Tabsile, who's in this picture. Tabsile is a teacher in rural Eswatini. And every single morning she wakes up early because as a teacher, she is required in rural Eswatini to collect water that her kids will use to drink and wash with every single day. Tabsile does not have any water at her school. And so she will wake up at 5 a.m. and she will go down to her water source, which is what you're looking at here. And she will collect water in this black bucket. She will then put this bucket on her head. It weighs about 20 kilograms, and she will walk about 2 kilometers to her school. So every day, Tabsile's commute is walking 2 kilometers with a 20-kilogram bucket of water on her head. And so I think about the sacrifice that Tabsile has to make. She has to wake up earlier. She has to participate in a physically demanding task just so her kids can have water. We met Tabsile. We asked her about the difficulties that she wrestles with, having to collect and carry water to the school that she teaches at. And she told us that kids would get sick from the water that she collected. She said kids would miss school for weeks. She also said that she couldn't grow the proper vegetables that she needed because she didn't want to waste what limited water she brought to school on food. And so kids weren't able to receive the proper nutrition because Tabsile was forced to walk with limited amounts of water to school every day. Now, we met Tabsile because we were lucky enough to build a water project in her community right outside of the front door of her school. And we came back a year later, everything had changed. They had a bright green garden full of vegetables because of water access. She said that not one kid had missed one day of school because they had access to close, safe water. And so Tabsile's sacrifice of having to wake up early and walk to fetch water so her kids could have something to drink and wash with, unfortunately, is not unique. This is really common all over the world. Hundreds of millions of women and children walk to fetch water every single day. And typically it's women or young girls, and the average distance is about 6 kilometers. And it can take women and children up to 6 to 8 hours a day to collect and carry water, which means the sacrifice that women make because they can't get jobs to provide for their family because their job is to collect water, or the sacrifice that kids make not going to school, not getting an education because they have to go and collect water for their family is extreme. And so can I connect Tabsile's story back to your story? What does this season of life look like? What have you been required to sacrifice? Maybe to better yourself, maybe to better humanity, or maybe you were just forced to sacrifice something because COVID forced you into that place. I think a life of service looks a lot like seasons of sacrifice built up, so that we give something up in exchange for contributing positively to the global community. This last story I want to share with you, it's actually of a student It's hard to see the picture maybe, but down at the bottom, I am pictured with my friend Harrison. I met Harrison as a 17-year-old student in Las Vegas in the United States. And when I met him, he was the leader of his school. Think of him as like the student body president. He was a senior getting ready to graduate and go to university, you know, in year 12 of his education. And he heard about our issue of the global water crisis. And he said, I want to do something about it. And so after learning about the water crisis, he implemented a school-wide campaign where he challenged people to go and raise money to build water projects. And at the end of the year, Harrison had raised 24,000 US dollars to provide clean water for people in need. And I look at Harrison's story and I think about this last word of service. And if daily we should be selfless, in the season of life, we should look at sacrificing something in our lifetime. Are we committing ourselves to be people of service? Are we committing ourselves to be people who give back, who volunteer our time, who donate our voice and lend our voice to causes we care about? I'm reminded not just of Harrison, but the millions of other students that have taken on our cause. And so I want to end with this. Daily, our mindset should be selflessness, because in selflessness, we think about others more and ourselves less. In this season of life, you might be asked to sacrifice something, but think about what you're willing to give up in order to do good in the world. And in your lifetime, are you a person that's committed to service? Are you a person that's committed to, like I said, volunteering either your time? Is it donating money? Is it lending your voice? Is it contributing to the younger generation through education so that we can make this world an actual better place, so that we can get closer to solving and achieving the sustainable development goals that the United Nations laid out for us? I talked about Thirst Project at the beginning, and so I'll talk about Thirst Project at the end. As a representative of Thirst Project, there are 3 things that we believe, and then I will wrap up. First thing we believe is that you as a young person are the most powerful agent of social change. Yes, go ahead, sorry. Oh, are we okay? Good. Give me like 1 more minute. I'm almost done, Dr. Talk, if that's okay.
It was just a kind of like, I think a glitch. No worries. Take your time there, Evan.
Oh, great, man.
I think
in my final minute, I just want to remind you as young people of something. First, you're the most powerful agent of social change. And like I said in the beginning, like if we want to change the world, it starts with you. It starts with young people. And oftentimes individuals will say that young people are the future. Man, you are the future generation. You are the future voice. But I don't just believe you're the future. I believe you're the present. And I believe that you are a powerful force today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. And I need you to lean into that. And the only reason I believe that is because I witness it every day when I get emails, texts, phone calls. I get on virtual video calls with students just like you who think about their ability to change things beyond their own environment, beyond their own community. So you as a young person are a powerful agent of change. The second thing you need to know is that you do have everything in your power right now to make a tangible difference in the world today. There are some incredible young people on this call. And sometimes as a young person, we can believe lies that say, you need to be older, you need to have more money, you need to have a higher education to make a difference. And I promise you, all of those are just lies. They are not true. You do not you do not need to have a higher education to make a difference. You do not need to have more money to make a difference. And you do not need to be older to make a difference. And the last thing I want to share with you is this. There are a lot of issues that are currently binding our global community. And the Sustainable Development Goals posture them in such a way that I find really interesting. You know, if we look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, I can't think of bigger goals than what is laid out in those 17 individual goals. The first one being no poverty. Can't think of a bigger goal than ending poverty as we know it. But as the list goes on, you look at quality education, gender equality, health and sanitation. And my message at Thirst Project is this. I'm assuming that I have a group of people here that care about a lot of different issues on our planet. But I also deeply believe that you care about the water crisis, because the water crisis is connected to so many other causes and issues, like achieving food security, achieving quality education, economic opportunity, health and sanitation. We look at the last year in this pandemic, and water is the first line of defense when it comes to fighting a pandemic like COVID-19. How can you achieve proper levels of health and sanitation if you don't first have access to clean water? And so I want to remind you in this season to just think about the issues that currently bind our global community and what your role looks like as a young person in solving these issues. And the last thing I want to say is a quote. And the quote says, "Never doubt that a small group of people can change the world." Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. I believe we are right now in this space, a small group of people, hopefully with a willingness and a commitment to change the world. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the first day of AHD event, and I would like to thank our speakers for today for their valuable knowledge they shared with us today. Dear audience, today you build the basis. We hope you enjoyed a lot. Tomorrow is going to be a really fun day with the Word Cafe. You have to use the basis we built it today. For factors, please use the WhatsApp group for more information and and for the audience, please stay tuned on Slack. See you tomorrow. Thank you for attending today's event, and I would like to remind you all that tomorrow's event will start at 2 p.m. Qatar local time. Please stay safe and see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Dear Iman, just before we finish, I think there are a lot of colleagues who are in need of asking questions. We might have missed, and Evan actually is such a great like a speaker. So if that's okay, I know you're the master of ceremony. By no means I want to like, but if possible, can we have some questions, please? Yeah.
Sure, it's totally fine to take some questions to make things clear, actually.
Yeah. So any comments, any questions? What Evan actually shared with us today has been so dense with his motivation, with his actually perseverance and his work. So there, everyone, any questions, please raise your hand digitally. There were a lot of comments a while ago, so I assumed that these are questions. So any burning comments and feedback? Okay, one actually. There, Mohammed, please.
Yeah, thank you. First, Ivan, thank you very much for this great presentation and showing us something that it's very strong. And I want to, when I saw the branding, when I saw the communication that you're doing, in terms of bringing the project and communicating it. So could you give us some tips and tools in terms of focusing on communicating the right messages through for the project itself and making sure that there is media and the right PR attention and communicating it to the right stakeholders? Because I think that you've been putting so much effort into positioning the project and communicating it and making sure that it's actually available and visible to the right audiences who will donate, who will support, who will, and as well communicating it with the right key messages, with the languages of people who can understand and support you through the journey. So can you give us some of your experiences through communication, in terms of communication for the project that you've been supporting through the years?
Yes, absolutely, Mohammed. Thanks so much for an insightful question. I appreciate that. Mohammed, I have one big piece of advice for you, and it is a three-step process for how we structure all mediums of communication. It is problem, solution, call to action. And so every presentation that I give, every social media post that we make, every part of our website is organized around that outline structure. So there's a problem. Right. And I think we as a group of people are coming together to help solve problems. The Sustainable Development Goals are positioned around problems. So the problem is the global water crisis. The solution is young people. Students can make a difference to solve it. And the call to action is get involved by raising awareness. People can raise money. People can lend their voice. And so when we're trying to present these issues or causes or initiatives that we care about, in our minds, it's always a problem, solution, call to action. That's how we've been the most effective as an organization in engaging our community. And then the second thing that's been most important to us when it comes to just effective communication is defining our target audience. Our target audience is young people. You know, I don't oftentimes speak to individuals over the age of 30. That's not where I spend my time. I spend my time speaking to 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds, because that is the community that we want to engage, and that is the community that we want to take action. So that's Mohammed, just two pieces of feedback I had for you: the structure of problem solution, call to action, and identifying and clarifying your target audience. No.
Thank you so much. There is any other questions?
I have a question, but I can't seem to raise my hand, so I'm just going to unmute myself and ask. Hi, Evan. Thank you so much for the
Hello.
presentation. I'm actually Dr. Evans' research fellow, so I'm supporting him in this whole thing. Anyway, I just wanted to say that you remind me a lot of, what's his name? Adam Braun, I think that was his name, from Promise of a Pencil. Do you know him? By any chance? Yeah. So your story, do you know him personally?
No, we know Pencils of Promise, the organization, but I know who Adam is.
Okay, cool. Well, we learned about him and his story from our intro to entrepreneurship class when I was studying in my undergrad. Anyway, so I guess my question is that Adam somehow developed, or not developed, but he grew a huge community, and it seems that you've done the same. So maybe if you can provide us with some advice as to how we can build that community in order for us to, because I feel like if you really do want to make a change, it is easy to start with, you know, just being motivated and having the willpower and starting, but how do you grow? How do you get the attention? How do you build that community in order to make a bigger difference or have a bigger impact?
Yeah, great question. And I have two answers for you. The first, I believe, is through empowerment, right? So how do we empower the people that we want to empower? We at Thirst Project want to empower young people. And so we had to ask the question, well, what's going to give us the best chance to empower, to actually make young people believe that they can make a difference in the world today? And so the biggest thing that we did for the last 12 years was we hired students to speak to other students. We felt like nothing was more empowering than sending a group of students around the world to go and speak on our behalf to their peers. So a student could sit in an audience, look at a young person who's talking about an issue like the global water crisis, hear their presentation and say, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. You know, instead of having a 55 or 60-year-old, no disrespect to, maybe the wiser of the generations, but to have a 18 or 20-year-old stand on a stage and talk about the issue of the water crisis and what people can do about it, that's empowering to another young person, because they're looking at someone who looks like them, talks like them, likes the same things that they do, listens to the same music. So the empowerment part of it all was key, but that's only a stir of emotion in the moment, because I think the next thing that's really important is proving impact. If you want to build momentum and continue to snowball a community of individuals who will support, you have to prove impact. So I can tell students that they can help us in the global water crisis, but then I have to show them how they've helped us in the water crisis. So as we build projects, as we implement water systems in rural communities, reporting back to students and letting them know, hey, here are the lives that you've changed. Here are the people that now no longer have to walk hours a day to fetch water, or people who no longer are struggling with waterborne diseases. So if you want to have a group of people that stay around for a while and continue to support you, they need to be reminded of the impact that they're making in the world, which is really, that's why media is really important, taking pictures and videos and capturing stories of people that have been positively affected by your work. So those are two things that we really focused on: empowerment and proving impact at Thirst Project.
Thank you so much. And I think so that we have a question from Sabika. Please unmute your mic, and the mic is yours right now.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, Evan, for that really moving address. I had two questions. One was that we've learned, through understanding the SDGs, how all of these issues are very interconnected. So have you ever found opportunities of collaborating with other organizations who have different missions, but you somehow found that overlap with them? And the second question is, yes, there are so many youth out there who are so passionate and whatnot, but you also have a lot of youth who are pretty much insulated in their bubble. And so have you found specific ways of breaking that bubble? Is it in-person talks? Is it specific kinds of social media campaigns? What have you found to be effective ways to kind of get through to them?
Great question, Sabika. Yeah, the first to answer your first question, that's where I spend most of my time in these spaces, is talking about the interconnectedness between global issues. So I've been in communities where I say, hey, did you know that gender equality is directly connected to the water crisis? People will say, no, tell me how. And then I'll educate them on the issue. But Sabika, when it comes to our field work, a lot of the places where we build water projects actually are at schools, because we've worked with schools and these schools have told us, hey, we built this school, we have this physical structure, but students aren't coming because there's not water here. And so they like Tabsile's story, where students would miss out on the opportunity to go to school and get an education because they were getting sick from the dirty water. And so providing that's just one example, quality education, meeting clean water and sanitation. If we build a water project at a school, people will come. A really good example is the first project that we ever built in Uganda. There's a YouTube video on our Thirst Project channel that describes this story, but we built a project years ago, about 11, 12 years ago at the school. And it went from 300 people coming to the school to now over 700 people coming to the school. They've built a medical clinic where they also need a water project. And so we're just seeing the significance of clean water to provide these additional opportunities at health and sanitation and at schools. So that's just something that's been really important to us. And then so we get to your second question. When it comes to students, and you're totally right. I was that student. I was the 14-year-old that did not care about global issues. I did not care about, helping or contributing to the world. What we have found to be really important is personally relating to those young people. So for example, I was a young person who only cared about sports. That's all I cared about. And so we build specific messages around the water crisis relating to young people's passions. We'll go and talk to sports teams about the significance of water when it comes to being able to play football. And how important is it to have water as a resource when you go and play football? You care about football, well, you care about water. We'll talk to people in the beauty industry who know that without water, beauty products or working in a salon, it does not exist if you don't have access to clean water. And so we're lucky enough to identify water as a universal resource that is connected to everything and anything. So we have to meet people with what they're passionate and enthusiastic about and connect our issue of the water crisis or just the significance of water to what they have genuine concern for. So that's kind of my feedback about, we have to understand our audience and what they care about, because people care about things, not necessarily global issues. So let's connect our issue to the thing that they care about.
Thank you so much. And the last question will be with Mujib. Please, the mic is yours right now.
I just wanted to ask that what future do you see for your foundation?
Mujib, ask that question one more time. I'm so sorry. What future do we see for the foundation? Is that correct? Yes, I love it. Mujib, that's a great question. I didn't get into this at all, but our future with Thirst Project, we have a goal to end the water crisis in the entire country of Eswatini. That's the future. And we're building a case study, Mujib, so we can show the world, hey, if you want to change, if you want to end poverty, if we want to provide quality education for all people, we believe that we first need to invest in clean water so people can have access to that resource so that we can focus on these issues. So the future is ending the water crisis in an entire country so we can build a case study around it to show the world that water has a huge return of investment. And yeah, I really appreciate you asking that question, Mujib. That is incredible. And then I saw a couple comments come through. To connect with Thirst Project, social media is our biggest space. You can go to our Instagram or any other place and you can send us a message. I will also quickly drop my email in the chat if anybody wants to connect and talk more about our work in our world. So thank you all for having me.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Mujib.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending today's event. And I would like to remind you all that tomorrow's event will start at 2 p.m. Qatar local time. Please stay safe and see you tomorrow. Thank you. Goodbye.